All right, we got to see some Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy, we finally get to see him do just a series. We did not get to see him do that much. But you know what? We still saw some of those classic Brock Purdy plays that we have seen in the past. So let's talk about what we saw from Purdy, the good and the bad, and really, what do we make of a guy who, again, we barely saw last season, but what we did see was pretty great. Let's start off with this play, because when I think about what Brock Purdy pulled off last year, this is kind of what I think about, is he did a lot of running the offense plays very effective. And again, when you play for San Francisco, that's really what you want, right? You don't necessarily need a guy who's going to come in and make these superstar level throws. A lot of times what you need instead is something like this, where, watch what happens. As the play itself, the way it's supposed to work is he's going to run a play action, then roll out towards the top of the screen, has a receiver who's going to kind of try and get into a gap in coverage as the linebackers move in. It's, underneath the defensive backs further deep. This is, it's a classic Kyle Shanahan play. We've seen them do this, constantly. Watch how when Purdy takes a snap, runs the play action, it's not the easiest of plays to make. I mean, he's, in motion towards the top of the screen. So already there's a bit of a difficulty there of having to throw off balance. And while there's a receiver open, he's not wide open necessarily. I mean, again, he's open. Like, this is a throw that if Purdy doesn't have to throw off balance, you would say is a wide open throw probably. But given the situation and running across your body, I wouldn't consider this an easy play. Purdy can do one of two things right here. Purdy could just throw it off balance, but that obviously makes it more difficult to make the throw. I actually like what Purdy does here. Watch him just stop, and then he's able to make the throw, and they're able to pick up a first down right there. To me, that was a really smart play by Brock Purdy to pull that kind of thing off, of having the wherewithal to know, hey, I can stop, get rid of this throw, and it still will be before the defensive lineman hits me, but that way I can make sure my feet are planted and get a more accurate throw, as, like I said earlier, the player was open. It was just kind of difficult due to him being in motion. Again, this is not the highest degree of difficulty play, but it's just a batting average thing, and what we saw last year from Purdy, and what we continue to see in this preseason game, is if you give him a window to make a throw, he can make that throw. Like, this one's another one where what's going to happen is, once again, it's a very similar situation in terms of just, it's a pretty easy play. I mean, Brandon Ayuk is the receiver who's going to run a quick route to try and get open, as there's really no one in that area currently. I mean, you see how it's the quarters coverage play that Denver is in, but the linebacker closest to the bottom of the screen is currently on the hash marks. So I don't know exactly what this doesn't seem like great positioning right here. Someone has to be aware of a potential slant route, but who is aware of this? Brock Purdy. He notices this and says, okay, well, there's going to be a guy wide open right there. Watch how Purdy takes the snap, looks over in that direction, and yeah, I mean, it's wide open, but if you see Purdy, he's already starting to throw in motion, and that's what I like about Brock Purdy. That's why I think that he should be the starter, is because he just makes these decisions so quickly. And in the Shanahan scheme, like I said, sometimes it's less about having the biggest arm or being the best athlete, and sometimes about just how well do you time these throws, and he times them so effectively. Watch as you see, again, pretty simple throw, but the fact that he got it there quickly allowed them to get all the way to the 2-yard line. If he was a little bit slower in getting over there, which most second-year quarterbacks would be, then they still get the completion. That was going to be a completion. It just was. It was wide open. But how many more yards would it have been if he hesitated? Well, we don't know, because he didn't. Now, heading over here, it was not a perfect game, a perfect drive. They, after all, did not quite get the touchdown. They came close, but were, eventually fell just short. And this was the play that, made it more difficult, I thought. And there was something Purdy could have done on this play to, I think, make it a little bit better. Right off the bat, it's a disaster. I mean, look, Purdy, runs the play action, and there is just pressure right in his face. What are you supposed to do? There's not much you can do in this situation. Okay, plays are going to go wrong, and the one nitpick I probably would have in Purdy's game is he hasn't necessarily shown me he can be like an incredible playmaker at this point in his career. That's just not something I've seen from him. So, okay, that would be something that I would consider to be one of the negatives in Purdy's game. But again, there's several ways you can be a good playmaker. Like, I would consider Tom Brady very good in playmaking scenarios because he knew how to limit the damage, and for Brock Purdy, who has weirdly gotten some Tom Brady comparisons, just mostly due to the fact that they have both won a lot and the fact that they were both drafted very late in the draft. Obviously, comparing anyone to Tom Brady after only 7 games or whatever it was, is a bit getting excited. But my point still stands that if for Purdy right here, if he wants to make a positive play, sometimes that's just by not making it a massively negative play. Instead, watch him kind of try to sidestep there and eventually just goes down. And to me, I think he did maybe have time to just chuck that one into the back of the end zone, over the back of the end zone, get the incompletion. Although I would say he at least didn't maximize a disaster, right? He could have tried to, he could have ended up fumbling the football or something like that. And I'm sure some coaches would say, you know what? I'm fine if you just, trying to make a move and eventually going down right there. One thing I do like is he kept both hands on the ball for most of that. Looks like one hand got taken off just when there was contact made and it got kind of yanked off. But for the most part, he was keeping 2 hands on the ball. So, even in the negative, I still find some positives and kind of question myself a little. Is it a fair negative? Because at the end of the day, it was a tough situation, had to make a split-second play, and at least didn't turn the ball over. So what do we make of all of this? The first thing I have to say is he's back. Brock Purdy is back. He is fully Brock Purdy. He looked like Brock Purdy out there. He looked like the kind of guy who we know, again, how valuable is Brock Purdy if you gave him a bad offensive line, gave him bad weapons, and a bad offensive coordinator? It doesn't matter. That's not his situation. And in this situation, he is really good. Like, this is a perfect fit Brock Purdy is currently in with the San Francisco 49ers, and he does a lot to make that fit perfect. Again, it's a fit that would work well for most quarterbacks. Let's just be honest. Most quarterbacks look at least decent in this situation, but Purdy looks a lot more than decent, and he showed why in this game, I thought, making the quick throws, and when something was there, taking it. Again, wasn't a perfect performance from Brock Purdy, but you know what? It was pretty close. Like, I had the one nitpick, and even when giving that nitpick, I still kind of said, yeah, but there was some good in it too. The reality is, this was, I think, a very good performance from Brock Purdy, just to remind us, yeah, that's who he is, and I just think, he should be the starter. I think that he is the best quarterback who is currently on the 49ers roster, I don't know what his ceiling is, but I know what the 49ers ceiling is, and that's pretty high, and I believe in Brock Purdy at this point, and we'll see if I'm right or wrong about it, and we'll see if most people are right or wrong about it. What do you think about it? Let me know in the comments below. Do you think Brock Purdy is very good? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.